What we see today is a huge pattern of denial that at the museum, as Nellie was just saying, we don't see the truth about what happened on 9/11. We see that we got to fight to put American flags in there. We see that there is no idea, no indication of what happened, as if it were some big accident and not an act of war, much less an act of jihad, which is what it was. There is no hint of that in the museum. And this goes together with a pattern of denial that is consistent throughout the Obama administration's policies and the Bush administration's policies before it regarding the jihad threat. Complete denial, complete obfuscation. Several of the speakers have already mentioned, but I'm going to tell you the story of how it happened. In 2011, 57 Muslim groups, including the Council on American Islamic Relations and the Islamic Society of North America, and other groups that have proven and demonstrable ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, wrote to John Brennan, who was then the counterterrorism advisor for the president. And they said that the counterterror training materials were full of material that was offensive to Muslims. It wasn't that it was false, it was true, but the truth offended them. And material that was demonstrably and obviously true, they quoted as evidence that these materials were biased. And Brennan readily agreed. Brennan said, okay, we will scrub everything. Not only will we scrub all the counterterror training materials, but we will retrain everyone who was trained by them or by trainers who, I was one of them, were telling the truth about the jihad threat. Where else have you heard about re-education camps? And this is the United States of America. It's unbelievable. And so, what happened? What's the problem? Why is this a big deal? Well, we saw what happened in April 2013 when the Tsarnaev brothers exploded bombs at the Boston Marathon, killing 2 people and wounding and maiming hundreds of others. The Tsarnaev brothers had been on the radar screen for years. The Russian government had given us multiple warnings. But who did they give the warnings to? They gave them to the FBI that had been forbidden to look at this issue. What did they tell the FBI? They said, these guys are jihadis. And the FBI thought, oh, that's nice. That means they want to struggle interiorly to better themselves. And so they scheduled an outreach to the Islamic Society of Boston. The Islamic Society of Boston, when it was founded, had on its board Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi is the most prominent imam. He's got a show on Al Jazeera, and he's the most prominent imam in the world. And he has praised Hitler and said, the Muslims have to finish the job that Hitler did. And he was on the board of the Islamic Society of Boston. At the Islamic Society of Boston was Tariq Mahana, who is now serving 17 years in prison for aiding Al-Qaeda. At the Islamic Society of Boston, members in good standing were the Tsarnaev brothers. And the FBI, instead of investigating, even despite these multiple warnings from the Russians, they went and had outreach programs with the Islamic Society of Boston. And so what happened? 2 people are dead, several hundred people are wounded, some of them maimed for life. That's the cost of this politically correct denial and obfuscation. Political correctness kills, lying about jihad kills, and we are at grave risk. Every day it continues. And one of the main things that we have to do is not only tell the truth about what happened in the museum, but call for our elected officials to press the Obama administration and whatever administrations come after it to stop all this nonsense, to tell the truth about the threat we face, and to fight it realistically and effectively. If we do not do that, then we will certainly, in the United States, be seeing in the coming years and the coming decades what we see today in Egypt and Syria and elsewhere in the Islamic world, and that is large-scale attacks on non-Muslims and the ongoing persecution and harassment of non-Muslims based on tenets of Islamic law that come from the Quran itself, which says in chapter 9, verse 29, that Muslims must fight against even the Ahl al-Kitab, the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission, a tax that only the non-Muslims pay, and feel themselves subdued. The non-Muslims in Egypt have been suffering this for centuries. And we have now Ashraf Ramallah, a president of Voice of the Copts, to talk about what exactly life is like for the Christians in Egypt and what we face if we don't stand up to this threat in the United States and elsewhere in the free world. Ashraf?